Welcome back to Sanity Lounge. Today, we're thrilled to have the incredibly talented bassist Matt Everhart joining us. Known for his unmatched versatility and dedication to the craft, Matt has earned his journeyman status, playing with a range of incredible bands and musicians over the years. From his early days on the scene to his countless gigs that have taken him across genres and stages, Matt's journey is one of perseverance, passion, and groove. Stick around as we dive into his story, his influences, and what keeps him inspired as a musician on the move. And after the interview, Matt brings the low end to Live at the Lounge.
All right, welcome Baltimore. Welcome back to another episode of Sanity Lounge. New guest in this week. Somebody I've met a few times. Matt Everhart. He's a journeyman, a bass player extraordinaire, jack of all trades, and he is joining us in the lounge for a nice deep dive conversation.
And the first official bass player.
Yeah.
Solo.
Oh, really?
Yes, sir.
First bass player.
So
Absolutely.
we've done a lot of drum episodes, but we have not done just straight bass
Sounds
episodes.
like a lot of
so
pressure.
it's interesting.
Right. Don't worry about
it's
it.
kind
I'll do
of
my best.
it's laid back, but it's kind of up in the air on whether or not I personally prefer a good drum solo or a good bass solo, and I think it's a bass solo.
Yeah, Woe's a rhythm cat at heart, you know.
Just
He
not a
never-
musician.
As a matter of fact, 24 years ago, he got a bass and was
I
going to
did.
go for it, but
And
then went down the sculpting.
I started
artist
playing it,
road.
and God damn, I wish I would
I
have.
knew you were gonna say that shit.
I still have it.
Yeah, but I'm saying,
It's
But
never
no,
too
I-
late, man.
No,
It's
I
never too late.
know. But I'll shout out BA here, Brian Applebaum, as he introduced me when we lived in Florida back in '99 to Victor Wooten. And the album Show of Hands.
That would have been
which-
about the time I would have found him too. That was like right at the end of high school for me, right
Yeah.
before college is when I found out about Vic. So like 97, 98. Yeah.
Oh my God.
so Matt, are you? Let's start here at the beginning. Was bass your first instrument?
Technically, my first instrument was clarinet. That's what I played in sixth grade band.
Right.
And then I went through my middle school band career as a saxophone player. But
I love saxophone.
Yeah,
for the
I was
record.
a tenor sax
Oh
player.
yeah.
But I knew that I cared about music even at that age, but it hadn't found my voice or my identity yet.
And what
I didn't
city
realize
are we
how-
in here?
I'm from a tiny little town in North Carolina called Lexington.
Okay.
And so that's where this all took place. If you've ever heard of Lexington and Thomasville Furniture, that's those towns. Like that, it was a furniture industry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's nothing there now. There's nothing there at all. There used to be furniture. Now there's not.
Right.
But no, so I grew up in that little sort of isolated part of the central North Carolina. So my exposure to a lot of music was just sort of culturally. I didn't have a big musician in my family, but there was always music playing. I had an older sister. I got a lot of my musical taste kind of passed down from her.
Nice.
But so when I got my start playing any kind of music at all in middle school, I still didn't have a direction. But summer before 8th grade, I had so my older sister, again, very influential at this time, was dating a bass player.
Nice.
And I didn't know what the hell that was, but I was already really starting to fall in love with music on a more intimate level. I was a huge Aerosmith fan.
Yeah.
Which I guess it was a requirement of being in
Standard.
the South in
Sure.
the 90s.
It's got one of the best riffs of all time with
Right.
Sweet Emotion.
Oh yeah,
Standard,
man.
of course.
Yeah, and not just as a bass player, just like such great, interesting ways
Yeah.
to reuse blues
Yep,
harmony.
yep.
I didn't know that in 7th grade or whatever. But so I was already falling in love with bands, right? But I didn't have like my voice yet. Summer before 8th grade, I borrowed a bass from like a distant relative who happened to have one that they weren't using, and did that like. The obsession thing. I don't know. Like if pottery maybe was this for you, or drums for you, where you just can't. You don't know why you can't put it down. I was falling asleep with it. I was waking up the next morning. I didn't get any. I was so hard headed. I didn't get any learning material. I just wanted the instrument. I wanted to know how to tune the strings. And then I was just trying to figure everything out I could. I was trying to consume it by ear.
Now, but you did have a smidge of music history.
I did because I was in band.
That
right.
does help, dude.
But I couldn't read bass clef. I wasn't even trying. Right. You know. So you're right. I had some musical instincts from band.
Because I mean that does help. If you're going in totally blind, it's a whole other animal. But,
so
you know.
are you completely self-taught?
I was up until a certain point. So I didn't have my first lesson on bass until I was a college music student.
Right.
But I spent high school still playing saxophone for my freshman and sophomore year and playing electric bass for myself. So putting together bands, writing music, playing talent shows, that kind of crap. By the time I was 15, we were like the bands I was in were gigging. This was a different time, right? This was like mid 90s. So there were no School of Rocks. There were, if you were gonna put a band together, you met in each other, somebody's parents' garage, and you learned a couple tunes or you wrote a couple tunes.
And what was your big influences at this particular time?
So I had like a flood of influences that both were very much part of the time period and also the influences of those folks.
Sure.
So not only was I being influenced by Soundgarden and Alice in Chains, but also Led Zeppelin, the bands those guys were listening to, Hendrix, and so I got to this point where all of those things had culminated in what was coming out of the bands I was playing with was sort of alternative rock. I guess that's where that led. And then through the course of high school, I started to get interested in stuff that was a little more heady. Found out about Vic Wooten. I heard Jocko for the first time my junior year of high school. That was a mind blower. And so I started to gravitate away from the pop music, I call it that I was listening to, but at that point, grunge and alternative was popular music, and started to dive deeper. I fell in love with Chick Corea's acoustic band. I fell in love with Mahavishnu Orchestra.
Billy Cobham.
Yeah. And as I went into college, I realized how much more seriously I wanted to take it. And so once I got to school, I actually got into school as a guitar player because I understood fretboard theory enough and I could actually read treble clef much better than I could read bass clef at the time. And this was 97. So four-year schools didn't have electric bass degrees.
Wow.
It was really Berkeley, BIT in California, and then you just kind of made your own way if you were anywhere else. And all my friends went to they went to App State, which is part of the UNC school system. So like a regular 4-year college, they're getting regular 4-year music degrees.
Sure.
And the only way I could get into the program was to do it on guitar. So I auditioned on guitar, got in that way, and then explained to everybody in the school, it's like, there's no reason anybody needs me playing guitar on anything. Like, I'm a bass player, please let me do this. And they kind of made it happen.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Because you got the best of both worlds. It's like you got the theory, you see how it applies with guitars and everything because you're right there.
Or anything.
Right, right.
I learned
That's awesome.
I learned, basic piano, and I learned aural skills, and I built, a real understanding of theory, and then just applied it to electric bass. Right. And then I did finally have like an actual electric bass professor. His name was Elliot Wadapin, and he was actually with the Paul Winters Consort for a while. And he was one of those guys that was actually did a lot of what I do now for a living. He was just a fabulous player that was a hired gun in a lot of different situations. By that point, he was teaching at UNCA and playing in the Western North Carolina Symphony. So he lived in Asheville,
right?
Which is what eventually brought me to Asheville. I went to undergrad at App State, which is in Boone, North Carolina. But then I ended up touring with a band out of Asheville for a while as well.
And it's important to see like a guy like that, like the teacher or whatever, actually doing it.
Oh, he was an applied
because
performer.
You realize you're like, oh shit, I can do that. Or
he taught in the same way I teach, which is like, okay, you give a shit about this.
Right.
I know enough about it to tell you, give you hints and clues. I've never had somebody come to me and thought, oh, here, let me give you this method of learning how to play the instrument. Not because those things don't work. They do something very valuable, but you don't need me to do that. As a teacher, you don't. Like, what you need from me is maybe guidance on things that if you're headed down the wrong path, or you've got some bad habits or whatever. And then otherwise, it's just talking about shortcuts,
right? Ways
to master the instrument without the frustration of trial and error You know, right? Like that's really all it is. Like if you've ever taught drum lessons or anything, anything you guys have done, if you're doing something technical that's related to art, like I don't personally ever want to steer anybody's taste or choices in any kind of direction.
I find with with drumming or talking, or if it like a young up and comer wants to learn drums, it's so hard to get them to start at the foundation. And I guess that's true all around because they want to learn this, but if you just learn that, you've screwed you're totally locked into it. So, like you have to evolve to that, you know? And it's hard to get people to not jump in like that.
I agree. I agree. For me, music was always kind of like this cool mystery that I wanted to unravel. Like I had so many colleagues that early on, not now, not my professional colleagues, but my earlier colleagues, high school and definitely during undergrad, that walked away from studying music because they felt like it kind of stole the magic or something like that. And I get that. I get that idea that you want to be surprised or you don't want to be too conformed so that if you're trying to create, you don't feel an urge to follow a certain path. Like you can really, I get that. That makes perfect sense to me. But I never felt like I was losing something by digging deeper into why something worked. Or why a certain interval got me excited, right? Like why does that create tension? Is it because that note needs to go up or down? And like we all can do that with our ears, you know, but understanding it from a vocabulary standpoint with theory just turned me on. It just added ones and zeros to all of it. So it was just fun to kind of figure it out.
That's interesting, though. I did read about you. I don't know if this is current. You keep mentioning that you're a teacher. Do you still teach at Carroll Community College?
Not anymore.
Okay, but
so I did for about 10. Yeah, I did for 10 years.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we're Carroll County boys.
Well, I live out there now. Yeah.
Do you?
Yeah, I'm in Woodbine, so I'm like.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
that's close to you.
I'm on Baker Road, man.
Yeah, man. I'm off of Hood's Mill, like
that's so funny.
That's nice.
My son works at the Winfield Inn.
Oh. That's crazy. Man. Well, so the place Chen and I bought when we first moved to Baltimore is by the Liberty Reservoir. I mean, we could like hop on a couple of bicycles and roll there from here. It's pretty close.
We know. My family grew up in Liberty Reservoir.
Just like in the water.
They flooded it. Yeah, back in the day. I've jumped off.
With the Sasquatch.
Swam in there, jumped off the bridge. Yeah. We've done some wild stuff. I jumped out of a moving Jeep traveling across Nicodemus Road Bridge.
Yeah, man. I used to take my dog around the reservoir down there in that little area that's kind of an island some of the time, depending on how the water is. Like go out there and hang out, and like Jen and I would make fires and stuff. I know you're not supposed to. But,
so do you teach currently?
I did teach. I don't teach. Well, that's not true. I'll teach on a case-by-case basis.
Right. Like private lesson kind of thing?
Right, yeah. Or coaching. I've done some like coaching with groups. Because when I was at Carroll, which I had a good experience at Carroll. It just during the pandemic, I think anybody in education kind of got fed up with it.
So that's what happened there up till the pandemic.
2 years of the pandemic too. I taught all the way up until the beginning.
And you taught
22
music, bass, and rock history.
I taught bass. I taught rock history, and I taught. So I did ensembles. I did the advanced rock ensemble. It was just an audition only rock ensemble, and then an open enrollment rock ensemble. Right. So the open enrollment was more like a rock. Like a school of rock kind of thing. We'll come together. I'll teach you how to play these parts. We'll make it through a set of music. And then my advanced group was doing like all over the place. I mean, we did everything from like really, really heavy metal fusion stuff to like, I don't know, Hiatus Coyote, like just all over the place. So it was great. It was super fun. I had some great students there. Like you don't really think of Carroll as being like an art magnet, but once that program got rolling, I mean, I had great students come through there.
That's cool.
And I was really fortunate to work with, some folks that are now out gigging that I had as students. So that was a cool experience.
Yeah, that's
doing the rock history class was fun too. Like
that's
doing
what
a lecture.
I was going to say that seems like a cool course.
Yeah, well, it's like a real stand up and lecture for 90 minutes in front of
did you write the curriculum? Did you do the research?
So
come up with the subjects?
It came with a book.
Sure.
I read through the book and was like, it was so
lifeless.
So when was do you remember what year was the book from?
2003 or something like that.
And you were teaching this
and I started teaching in 2012. Yeah.
So it was missing a lot.
Yeah. So it was missing a lot. And not just that. I thought this shit was incredibly interesting, just like the origins of the stuff, but it gets kind of in the weeds because the real origins of what eventually became rock and roll, you have to look at the origins of American popular music, which means you're going all the way back to the combination of like the British Isles and slave culture, like the people that had the least control.
Sure.
They are the people that really pioneered what is a truly original American music.
Sure.
That gave us blues and that gave us jazz
right,
to begin
right.
with.
Yep.
And then out of blues, we got rhythm and blues, which is what was appropriated to be called rock and roll. That's what it is.
Right.
And so that early stuff, you'll lose a lot of 19-year-olds, if you dig in too deep with that. So
It's such a shame, though, because if they just got out of their own way, there's so much fruit in that. I was such an asshole when I was a kid.
I tried to tie a lot of that back, and I tried to make sure I wasn't valuing anything over and like the first couple of days of class, I'd be like, talk to me about what you actually listened to. You decided to take a music history course at a community college, and clearly you made a decision here, right? Yeah, and it was cool, man. Like bringing people in and having them talk about something that they're as passionate about as music, because almost everybody is. Even if they say to themselves, "Oh, I don't care that much about music." You can find something that they hate,
right,
and you can find something that they love, and you can do it pretty quickly, right? Like, and so we feel a way about music and art, but we talk about music more in popular culture, so it's a little bit easier to converse about.
I'm very heavy on the spiritual side of drumming. It's the oldest instrument, and it's had a lot of history.
Very human,
and and so we could get into the weeds about all kinds of history like that.
Well,
I feel that you have the same kind of bent of music, just pulling your soul. You can't get enough of it type thing. It's good stuff.
Any student that I ever had, that students will do that thing like, "Oh, what do you think? Should I do this? Do I have it or whatever?" However they phrase it.
Right.
And the only answer to that is if you can't stand to not do it, that's why you should do it.
Yeah, right.
If you're doing it because you think you're good at it, like you have no reason to do it, you just think you're good at it, somebody told you it's a good idea or whatever, or you have an inkling that you'd like the attention or you'd like the experience, those will not get you to that point of the 1,000 times that you're going to hate yourself and then crawl back up to the next plateau and feel a little bit better and then hate yourself again and crawl back up. You have to be obsessed with it.
Right. It's so funny. Every gig, I'm disgusted with myself. Every gig, I'm like, I played like a shit sandwich tonight.
If you think you figured it out, then whatever you're doing.
I'm with sculpting.
Yeah, right.
I'm my worst critic.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, this is a pile of shit. And my wife's like, it's not. People, like, not everyone can do that. Like,
right. It's a weird thing.
But it's a passion. Like, if I could, I would just create stuff all day long, every day. Like, it's definitely a passion of mine, and it's sometimes it's a problem because I become obsessed.
Oh, yeah. Like, I know that the problems I have, my mental health problems, both cause me issues and help me as a musician.
Exactly. Right.
They make me obsess, and that's, who's going to dive that deep into anything unless you just are obsessed with it, right?
My wife, God love her. She puts up with drumming. I'm a serious like I play 2 hours a day. Whether it's practice pad or on the set.
I got real lucky with that.
It's like, and my wife, if I don't, she's like, go drum. You're being
or you need it.
It's like because it's saved my life, really.
Well, I got my wife is a professional player too, so that's a discussion we don't have to have. We both get it for the same reasons, and actually both of our boys, like if I'm in the studio working or Jen is practicing clarinet, they know that like we're at work. They give us space because we just established that really early on. It's pretty
cool.
So
your wife plays the clarinet.
She's a classical clarinetist. That's actually what brought us to Maryland. So we got married and went to grad school together. That's when I left North Carolina. We were in the Midwest for a couple of years at Indiana University.
Okay, Indiana. Nice.
And she got a master's and a performing diploma, and then started taking auditions. And she won one of the military groups, one of the top tier military groups based out of Maryland, and that's what brought us here. The one based out of Fort Meade, actually.
Nice.
And we've been here since 2006.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
2006.
Nice. So as far as your plethora of instruments? How many do you play?
Well,
I know some people are like, I can play a little bit of everything.
Yeah,
like Ricky's like, I can dabble with
you can make noise on a lot of stuff. Yeah.
But what do you got?
So I'm a bass player, foremost, obviously. I actually adore playing drums as well. And I've been lucky enough to have some folks that are willing to let me gig on that occasionally.
Right.
So I get to do it, I don't know, maybe once a month, something like that. I play guitar as well, and proficiently enough to lay down tracks. I've done a couple of gigs on guitar, but it just, I have this difficulty with my intensity level, and so like the more delicate and sensitive the playing needs to be, that's probably where I falter the most. So I find that the smaller the instrument gets, the less delicate I can be on it live. Like I can I can play mandolin, I can play ukulele. Those things are really fun if I'm by myself and I'm not competing in any way, and I'm not getting excited. It's not just competing for volume. I get excited, and my technique, because of playing bass, I can lean in and the instrument will push back on me. But the lighter, the more delicate the instrument, I start to really choke. And so as live, playing guitar is a little tough for me for that reason.
Right.
And then, I did play saxophone, but I would never subject anybody to hear me play sax anymore.
Shit, I love sax.
Yeah. So, but I would say those three are things that I would, if somebody needed me to do it at a gig,
bass,
I'd be
drums,
comfortable.
guitar.
Yeah.
That's it.
And I guess I sing
impressive.
too.
And sing.
Yeah.
It's funny you say about the, like technique and stuff like that, but like, as you don't ever think about it, but part of the gig as you're learning and playing with other people is when something just blows your face off and is just so great, you have to just relax through it. Like as a drummer, if you guys hit a change and the whole band is on point and it's like the lights hit perfectly, everybody's rocking, there's a certain point, if you're young in the game, where it's like that adrenaline alone will throw you off of everything. And it's like the key is harnessing that like adrenaline pump into stasis or not even allowing it to control you.
And honestly, I think there's value in both of those, right?
Well, yeah, it's like you were looking for that.
Right.
But when it happens, you've got to have the discipline to not let it totally throw you off.
Well, it's okay. Like if your moment of explosion, you're playing a Sex Pistols tune or a Nirvana tune, the harder you swing for the fences, the more authentic it's going to feel.
Absolutely.
But if your moment of intensity is some passage in a Tool tune, you got to nail it.
Right.
Like,
it's another 6 minutes of pattern. Right.
And so like those things do matter.
Well, that's what I mean. Like that's a prime example. If you get one of those patterns right, you do it for 17 measures in a row and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm on. And then it changes to another one. You're like, damn. I
think that's probably the thing I get to utilize professionally the most is conforming to those moments.
Right.
Because that really is what I do for a living.
Well, that's what I mean. It's in the young game.
Cover the spaces,
that's what the problem is.
So you're a lifer. Music is your career. That's what you do for a living. Bass player.
I haven't had a normal people job since summers in between undergrad.
Nice.
The last normal people job I had was working as a third shift manager at a convenience store, like a gas station,
right.
because it conformed so nicely with my normal life of playing gigs, and that would have been 2001.
Right.
I did work as an engineer. I worked as an engineer, a studio engineer.
Yep.
That was so my undergrad degree was a music industry degree because, again, like I said, I was playing electric bass. So I did all my theories. I played my recitals. I did all the stuff, but they couldn't give me a performance degree on electric bass because they didn't offer one.
Right.
So I also did a business minor and studied in studio engineering so I could get an actual degree. So I did a industry degree with a concentration in recording, and then which includes a minor in business, and then on top of that did all of the stuff you would do if you were a performance major, just because that's what I wanted to do.
Right.
So that meant I also worked as a year, 6 months as an intern, and then 6 months hired on afterwards before leaving for grad school. I worked as an engineer at a commercial studio, so doing radio spots, sync to television, jingles, that kind of stuff. And so I was sitting behind the board.
That we would know.
I worked on everything from Wendy's for about a year in there would have come from me.
Right.
But these would have been regional, though. This was in, I don't know
So
how far they ran. It might have been national. I don't actually know. I was a $10 an hour fucking, even though I was behind the board, they could get away with paying me nothing. Even though I was engineering, I didn't matter. Nobody gave me any information. But yeah, we had Wendy's. We had Joseph A. Bank. Does anybody remember that version of the commercial?
Yeah.
That guy. I know that guy. And what else? Racing Country, a NASCAR thing. This was Charlotte, North Carolina. Not a surprise. Anyway, that was the national stuff.
Right.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Nice.
It was cool. It was good. But I guess that's the last not playing an instrument job that I had.
So you guys moved to Baltimore in 06? Right.
We were in the Midwest from 2002 to into 2005. That was grad school.
Right.
I was playing in Indy and Chicago. By the time we left, I was playing pretty regularly in Indianapolis and Chicago. And then we ended up out here in early 2006, and I was still driving back to the Midwest and gigging. Anybody who's ever changed scenes has probably dealt with this before.
Right.
When I left the East and moved to the Midwest, that first year of transition, I was driving back. I'd play I'd go up and down the coast with whatever band I was touring with, or go to Winston or Charlotte or Chapel Hill and play the 3 or 4 gigs we had lined up. And then I'd go back to the Midwest. And then once I was really working in the Midwest and Jen won the gig out here, I was driving back to the Midwest to tour with that band that I'd been playing with for a while, catch the gigs that I had there. And then, so I didn't really start gigging in Maryland till 08, 09.
Right.
It took a while.
Yeah, Kruger told us that when he first moved to Maryland.
Same thing.
He moved to Maryland and then committed to a band back in California. So he was living at the airport, flying back and forth several times a month.
When it's what you do for a living, and it's so even now, even in the social media age, it's still so word of mouth.
Right.
You're only going to get hired if the right person saw you do the right thing at the right time that they think is going to work in this other situation. Right. I mean, for those of us who aren't just building their own thing, right? At working as a rhythm section player and as a sideman, I kind of just have to go and do whatever I can to sound as good as I can in any one moment, because that's always an audition for the next gig.
So do you have an agent? Or are you in the union or anything
I was in the union. For the sake of playing theater gigs when I first got out here, because I was doing a fair amount of theater work in Indy before we left. But I haven't done a ton out here, and I let it lapse, because that's the only thing I've really seen I've needed it for was theater gigs.
Right.
Now that's not true. If you're in New York, that's a whole different thing. But down here, it's not as tightly controlled.
Yeah, I agree. I just thought maybe because you were around, some people, once they get it, they don't let it go.
Yeah, I mean, I've done a little bit of green sheet work, but it's been years since I even dealt with it.
Right.
But that I'm not knocking it. I'm not.
Sure.
No, it's been a long time coming to get you on here. So the first time, I don't know if we actually met that night, but I saw you with the Rachel Hall band at the Woodshed.
Oh yeah,
because I described it to you.
Nice.
Remember?
Right.
I was like, dude, there's a stand-up bass
at
this event.
That was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was wonderful.
Yeah, the Woodshed's a great.
Glad you liked it.
Yeah. Because I told him. I was like, dude, it's not every day you see a stand-up bass.
So I've done the Woodshed 3 times now.
Have you?
With different, always with different groups.
Nice.
Right?
So you're an MVP
I guess
Woodshed
you've
player.
done it twice, I guess, with Warren, though, right? Have Speakers of the
Speakers
House
has not done it.
They haven't done it.
So I did it with Warren, with Rachel.
Yeah.
No, it's only once with Warren. So I did it with Warren, with Rachel's group. And then I did Dana Denise's, when her album came out, we did a quartet, and it was me and her guitar player, Roxanne, and Sabina on piano. And that was really fun. That was really beautiful.
Yeah.
I thought that was a really cool
she's one of on my list to get in here.
She's lovely. And her creative slant is very fun, because she's got all of this sort of darker, heavier music she's really into, and some really beautiful acoustic bass music, and she kind of brings it together in a way that I think works really well. So.
She's on the side of Call Classic now. They have a mural of her.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's
and
cool.
then the third time I did it was a classical thing, and I did it with my wife, her best friend John, who's another clarinet player, she's been in bands in the military band thing for almost 20 years, and his wife, who's a cellist, and we did a classical night.
Wow,
and it was awesome.
Yeah.
So we and I mean classic. I was still playing electric bass, but we did some duets. Jen and I did this series of duets during the pandemic. Like we did a version of Black Hole Sun that people like really leaned into. She was playing bass, clarinet, and bass.
Yeah.
And so we did some of those duets, and then she did some clarinet duets, and then John and his wife did clarinet and cello, and then we did quartet, and we actually read string quartets, like legit classical string quartets, but with that instrumentation. So it was electric bass playing the cello parts, cello reading up in the viola range.
I got you.
And then the clarinets were doing both of the two first and second violin parts.
Wow.
So it was really kind of a neat voicing, like the way we kind of combined that stuff. And then what we also did was a little bit of more pop-oriented stuff. Like I worked out an arrangement of a Muse tune that we did as a quartet, Hysteria, and something
underrated band. Muse is
badass.
Yeah. Underrated. Man.
Yeah,
I mean,
so that was a
in my
lot of fun.
Yeah, another thing that seemed like a lot of fun, that the next time I saw you was in June when you put together that like female supergroup at Admiral's Cup, which had Dinah,
Dana,
Britt,
Yeah, you showed me a video of that.
Jess McQuay,
McQuay on
Kathy
drums.
DeToro, she's from Leg Warmers and Fetch.
Yeah. Kristen Longana.
Kristen Lagana, Gina
DeLuca.
It was a million.
Yeah, Kelly Butcher.
Yeah.
Who else?
And what was the impetus of that?
Well,
He was all the way in the back.
Yeah.
Playing the bass.
So I have a residency. I know it was all girls and me, right? Okay, hold on.
It was
I can
awesome,
explain.
though.
I can explain.
I think I left
It's
here.
progressive, babe. That's
I
what
left.
we're all about.
I don't know who was in that day, but I left here
I know.
to go there.
I know. You sent me a video like one night when we were here, I feel like.
Yeah, so I have a residency at that's all the impetus of it was. I have a residency at the Admiral's Cup, which is every Thursday. And what I normally do, because there's 4 Thursdays in a month, I just rotate some of the bands that I play with. So like a Frederick band, and then like I do Rachel Hall, and I do Speakers of the House, and I do a trio with Ricky Wise and Tony Waddy, which is a lot of fun. I really like that one. But when there's a 5th Thursday, I've been making this effort to always do something different. Try to feature people that maybe don't play in that room or even in Fells that often, but people that I really adore working with and admire. And I had this idea. I know so many incredible female musicians in this scene. I mean, we're incredibly spoiled in that way. And every instrument, right? Like guitar, keys, bass, drums, everything. Like beautiful vocalists, beautiful. This gig, we had a violinist, we had a horn section.
Amazing. It was amazing.
Yeah. Nicole Connolly, my friend, trombone player, she kind of led our little horn section, and we had like 3 horns. It was great. Man. We had just like such a great group of people. And so that was the idea. I wanted to feature these female artists, and it was really tough for me to come up with who I wanted on the gig. So instead, I was like, well, let's try this. Why don't we build a rhythm section, right? So, keys, guitar, bass, and drums. And then whatever we want to augment that, and then we'll switch out the lead vocalists so that we can move in a bunch of people.
That's right.
Yeah, and we ended up with like 9, 10, maybe 11 people that ended up performing that night. It was great. I'm actually kicking around the idea of doing a pared down version of that this next year going forward. So it's good to hear that people were into it, because I loved it. I loved it.
I love it.
And
it was cool.
And the only reason I was there is because it's my gig. Like that's the only. Like I didn't need to be there.
Right. No, but it was cool.
It was
because
super fun.
It kept rotating. I mean, it was just a huge band, and then Matt's just all the way in the back, standing there playing the
video
bass.
was
It was
fucking
awesome. It was cool.
Yeah, and we did everything from like St. Vincent to Motown. Like we were all over the place. It was very, very cool.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. I'm glad you were there for that. Man.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, me too. And then most recently, I don't remember. I can't remember the name of the. I just saw you like a couple weeks ago at the Admiral's Cup. What was that band?
Tell me what was happening, and I'll tell you what band it was.
It was J.K. was sitting in with you. Justin Kruger.
that was Dan McGuire's band.
Yeah. That's it.
So the
that
Dan
was
McGuire
a good band
group,
too.
based out of Frederick. I've been playing with Dan for a couple of years, but he's had his band for. I've only been in the band for like 5 years. The band's been together for forever.
Yeah, he's a great vocalist.
He is, and J.K. was subbing with us. Yeah,
right.
he sounded fucking great.
Yeah, that was a great night too.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun.
We went to
He's
that.
a great player.
That was after the Be More Art party we went to.
Nice.
And then we popped over there.
Right.
Because then Ricky was playing.
I was saying, Ricky was right next door or something, right? Yeah.
No, that was a great night of music.
So the guitar player for that band, Shelby, he and I are working on original music project together right now. We've got something that we're cooking up.
So let's go into that, because you're in a lot of bands.
I am in a lot of
You
bands.
work with a lot of people.
I do.
So let's dive down that rabbit hole.
Like if someone was trying to seek Everhart, what are they looking for?
Yeah, you can start. You can start wherever you want.
Holy
but
crap.
I know it's deep.
It's a lot. Well, you know what the interesting thing about it is the job's kind of the same all the way around.
Right.
Like you come to the situation. I like different people approach it different ways. Maybe I'll start this because when we were messaging, I was saying, the idea of being a hired gun is something I think is slowly making its way into popular culture, or at least they're conscious, right?
Yeah.
Like we've had movies about it now. We talk a little bit about it. Like there's internet memes and shit. So
well, it's funny because I mean, from his perspective, and I've talked about this with Ricky. I've talked about it with Tristan. As far as from the drummer's point of view, where just filling in, being like, oh yeah, we need a drummer, so you're just going to sit down and play our music, and it fascinates me that that's a thing and you can just do it. But he's like, not everybody really can,
or would want to,
would want to, right?
It's an interesting
but it's something you embrace,
and
you do it.
So and I like to make it clear that I'm not somehow claiming that this is the right way to do it. There is no right way to do it. Yeah, and the people that have been lucky enough to just purely create for their careers, I envy that incredibly. I'm not in any way claiming that what I do has more value. It doesn't.
Sure.
But it doesn't not have value, and it's actually really difficult to do in its own set of ways. So it's got value in that. And so that's the hired gun thing, I guess, for anybody who doesn't know what that is we kind of imagine professional musicians as either somebody who works as a waiter during the day and plays for free at night, or somebody who is famous and has millions of dollars. We just assume, we don't, but the general public, those are the two versions. It's just like anything else. There's all this mess in the middle. There's work to be played and there's money to be made doing that work, and somebody's got to fucking do it, And so that's what most of us hired gun folks do. I call myself a blue collar musician. For a living. I'm still a creative, but mostly I get paid to be a blue collar player. Now, the way I approach that is not the same way some other players approach it. I know some incredibly gifted players who can come in and you never know that they're on the gig because they're so spotless. They have everything incredibly beautifully prepared, and they come and play and leave, and you never even know that they were there. And that's really the way they say you're supposed to do it. That's the way I was told.
Do you mean never know they were there, as in they weren't actually part of the band regularly? Or
right. They're subbing, and it feels effortless.
You would have noticed.
Right.
You're like, they're not normally with the
band.
You're
like, that guy must be in the band.
It feels effortless.
Right.
And I can do that, but that's not really my strong suit. My strong suit is understanding the material and still kind of playing like me, which I get. But that is a choice that I'm making, which is going to make me the wrong guy for some gigs and the right guy for other gigs.
Right.
Sure.
But what it has done for me is allowed me to stay in touch with what I feel like is the creative part of why I play, but be viable as a working candidate for 5, 10, 15, 20 bands at any given time. And those are not like flippant numbers. I mean, it's definitely been times when I've been in bands, more than 20 bands, and like you could say I'm in them, whatever. I'm working more than one gig with that many groups. Right. And so and me wanting to still play like myself is kind of the conundrum of that, right? Like you're going to do all this material that's either oftentimes very different, because if you even think about the bands that I do at the Cup on Thursday nights, like the Dan McGuire group is playing the 90s stuff and the 2000s, like the emo metal stuff. And then the second Thursday is Rachel Hall. She does a bunch of her own material.
Yes.
We do a lot of sort of soul and blues. Even her rock stuff definitely has like an older slant to it. Speakers of the House is everything from, like the New Orleans funk stuff we do to Steely Dan to, it's all over the map too. Right. And then the stuff I'm doing with Ricky and Tony, like we're doing Nine Inch Nails, we're doing Ben Folds 5. I mean, it's just a really wide range of stuff. Over, and that's just they're just the 4 bands that I work with one night a week during the month, right? So that wide range, keeps extending out from there. If you look at all the projects that I'm involved in, I'm in Carl Filipiak's band, which is like very, notey fusion,
Yeah.
that all the way to like even like with Dana's project,
Right.
like it's almost a folk group, like from her.
Sure.
Her material is much simpler, and I'm really just like kind of warm, low end pad, most of the time.
Laying back.
Yeah, it's kind of all over the place. And that is what I've done to try to sort of create being a blue collar player or being a hired gun. And it's seemed to work, like you said before, like imposter syndrome runs pretty strong in all of us. So I hope people aren't just being nice to me and have continued to be nice to me for the last 30 years.
How often do you get like a call from somebody you don't know?
The out of the blue calls still come. They're never calls anymore, right? They're all messages,
Email.
some kind of DM. Most of them, I try not to lead people on. If I know I don't have time to make something happen, I give them another qualified person's name and try to get them what they need as quick as I can.
I mean, I guess it's wild.
It is.
I mean, but I'm sure they're reaching out to you either because they saw you or somebody was like, "Hey, reach out to this guy." It's so many variables
the music
to it. It's
is
crazy.
it's so word of mouth.
Word
it
of
really
mouth.
is. Yeah.
And there's so much music
So
in
to be
Baltimore,
clear,
so
though-
many bands
And
that
badass players.
Yeah. God damn.
This scene, that is something right now that I'm like having a big, like if I was going to proselytize about anything, it's about how incredible the talent pool in the Baltimore music scene is.
That
Now let's
is why
now,
we're
now
doing
let's
this.
It's
hold on.
amazing.
Let's hover on this for a second, because when you first came in, you were like you were going to start talking about the city, and I was like, hold that thought, because I want to, because we do, we're trying to, bring a better light to Baltimore in general. It's a great city. It's
is
got
amazing.
problems, but it also has great shit, and it's
Yeah.
got great artists and
Yeah.
stuff. What is your experience with Baltimore?
So as somebody who's played in more than one scene, more than one major city, and lived there long enough to be at least a working part of those machines, this is such a different environment. It is hands down the most self-supporting and encouraging professional scene that I've seen, because like you can walk out on any given night in definitely in Fells, but also in Canton and still a little bit in Fed Hill, at least the 8x10, right?
Sure.
And hear people of all levels, from really just kind of getting their feet under them to you can go to Keystone and hear Dennis Chambers play,
Oh, my God.
or anybody you want and play anything you ever want to hear as good as you'll ever want to hear it played. And that's not bullshit. It's
Right.
just true. Right. And so those things are there all the way back down to, somebody who's got brave enough to jump up on an open mic, and people are out listening to it. They're out experiencing it. Now, it's not a perfect world. You still got to occasionally tell people that you don't know what they mean by play something good, but it's just,
Sure.
it is not
Assholes and everything.
nearly as supportive and inclusive in a lot of other cities. At least my experience hasn't been that way.
Well, that's important to say. I'm glad you say that.
Yeah, and even coming and like North Carolina holds that pretty dear. The Asheville music scene is very, very tight knit. Now I haven't been down there for 20 years, so I'm not a part of it. But when I was a part of it, it had some of these elements, but there was less work, there's less money.
Right.
And so it was definitely still more just leaning in on I do this as a creative, and then I have whatever I do over here to make a living.
Sure.
You could play in this area if you're willing to do the weddings, you're willing to do the corporate work, you're willing to do the bar gigs, you're willing to play in the county, play in the city, but go as far as Philly, go as far as south as Richmond. If you're willing to do those things, you can make a living.
Right.
I mean, you have to have the ability to do it.
Sure.
But the work is here, and that's not true everywhere.
Right.
And I think that speaks to the nature of the city itself. People are supporting it, whether they know it or not. Just going out and buying beers at the bar when there's a band playing and not bitching about it is supporting it.
Yeah.
All the way from there to, screaming your face off when somebody's playing exactly what you want to hear. Like those two levels still keep us working. They keep us eating. So and Baltimore just does that incredibly well. And with great players. Right.
Yeah.
It's not just a self-supporting scene. It is a very fine self-supporting scene.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah,
There's
the
so
one thing
many
that
good
I've been learning, he's known for a minute now, is like all these bands, I fucking love him. Like every time if he brings a band in here that I've never heard of, it's an original band, and I'm like, holy shit! Like they're fucking incredible.
That's pretty badass. Did either of y'all make it to the Almighty Senators?
No, he told me about it.
Holy shit, it was so good.
Like
the record.
That's not
Christ,
just
it
a
would've been
one-time
incredible.
thing. Are they going to do it again or no? Or you don't know?
I can't give any kind of official
Right,
word on
right.
that. So you guys
they
know
had
that-
to have fun.
You know the circumstances, right? That Landis was sick.
Yeah.
Okay, so Landis.
Well, I
don't-
mean, kind of.
I don't know I don't know those circumstances.
I don't want to dig in too deep.
Yeah, right,
I don't know
sure,
how
sure.
much
I
of
don't
that is
wanna-
personal.
Sure,
I know
yeah.
personal information because of knowing Warren.
Sure.
So I'm gonna walk the line on that.
Absolutely.
But
And then
getting
that's
past what Landis was dealing with.
We at Chris Schaefer's variety show back in July. Landis was there. He's
Oh,
been
okay.
to two of them.
And
so
I walked
Brian,
right up to him and said,
Brian
"Sir,
got a
will you
chance
come
to
on the
talk
show?"
to.
Right.
He wants to come on.
Oh,
we
yeah.
just we haven't
Dude, it's gonna
worked
be.
it out.
You'll
but-
love it. He's
Yeah.
such a badass dude.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
and it's not just that he's a character. He's also loving and
He seemed very
incredibly
warm.
sweet.
I mean, like I said, I walked
I'm
right up to
real
him. It was
bummed
very
out
nice.
I couldn't go to
you
that
know.
because the last time I saw Almighty Senators was on Halloween at the Record.
Okay.
But like 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Right.
So whatever Landis is dealing with, beside this particular show, he made the decision that he wasn't going to be able to play drums and sing.
Mm-hmm.
So he sang on the show, and they had a drummer come in. Actually, the guy from Future Islands is pretty badass.
Hey,
The
I
drummer
know.
from Future
Yeah,
Island?
yeah.
He follows us.
I was just saying, we know this
Woo,
guy.
that
or
boy.
he-
He follows Sanity Lounge.
Crushed that gig. So he was a fan.
Sure.
I'm getting this all secondhand.
Sure,
anyway.
sure.
No, that's awesome.
But so he was like that. That was very mutual. It was a lot of mutual
Awesome.
love.
No,
and
that's
and
great.
the band was on fire. They were
Yeah.
incredibly intense, incredibly up. You know,
Right.
Yeah.
they played they had a 2.5 hour show. Maybe it was long. It was awesome.
Were you there?
Yeah. Oh,
it
yeah.
was packed.
It was
It had to be packed.
It was sold out.
Yeah. People
So-
have been waiting for that show for
Well, that's why I said you told me about it.
Ricky
It's
and
just
I
couldn't
couldn't
do
go.
it.
Ricky and I, knowing, Ricky and I both been playing with Warren for years.
Sure.
That was both of our first time seeing the Senators.
Yeah. I've only seen him once, and
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
15 years ago. Like
Yeah.
I'm bummed I couldn't get that.
Right.
Yeah, and I love Warren's one of my best friends in the world, and getting to see him in that sort of element that is his most natural.
Origins,
yeah,
right.
it's just really incredible. And
That's
and
cool.
their songwriting is fun. And
They're
it's
so I love
badass,
that.
man.
Yeah, I love the Senators.
Yeah, a lot of fun.
That's awesome.
That's amazing.
I saw Ricky
Another
post
example of a
about
great
that.
Baltimore
Yeah.
band.
Well, right. And Landis is doing music like aside from that, right?
Yeah,
Doesn't he? Or
yeah.
He does
He's
art
got a
and
DJ
music.
thing,
Right,
and
right.
yeah. He's still very involved. He did auction off his drum set. So I guess the idea of him singing and playing is probably in the past,
Sure,
health wise. But
Yeah.
I don't think he's done being an artist.
Yeah,
by any
definitely.
means. Yeah. So that's the only reason I can't say whether or not that was a one time thing. I actually
Right,
don't know.
I know.
Does that
right.
make
Sure.
sense?
Yeah. I just
right,
asked
right.
anyway. I didn't think. Yeah.
Yeah, that came
I didn't know.
and
I
went,
didn't think
yeah.
we were going to get an exclusive on that one.
I just don't want to put my foot in my mouth, which
Right.
wouldn't be the first time I've done
He'd
it.
be like asshole.
So, but just to be clear, you're a hired gun, so you don't have the Matt Everhart band that you would call your band officially.
There's a couple things I would never do that. That's the grossest thing I've ever heard
Dig
anybody
it.
say ever.
I love it. It's going to be the Matt Everhart
The Matt
Quartet.
Everhart band.
For a while at the
M.E.
Cup,
Quartet.
at the Cup, at some point there was like a like one of those standing chalkboards for the days of the week, and they
Sure.
wrote in the bands, and they put Everhart salad up there for my Thursday nights, which I was like, God, it's fucking awful. And then it kind of grew on me, and I liked it, and then it got erased at some point.
Right.
But whatever.
Everhart salad. That's
Everhart salad.
But no, so if I had am I in some bands? Yes, I am in Dan McGuire's band. I'm in Speakers of the House.
Okay.
I'm in the Rachel Hall band. Things like I'm in Carl Filipiak's band. Like those bands, I am the bass player of
Officially
those
the
bands.
bass
Yes.
player. Right.
Nothing is my band because nothing is mine.
But that's
It's
just
all
what I meant.
collective.
Like, is there any bands that you would call technically like it's not you're a hired gun, you're the bass player of that
Right,
band, and you're
yeah.
saying that those four.
And the higher gun thing, for me, has definitely been like the way I've gotten my foot in the door with all these people.
Right.
Now, Speakers of the House was different. That was kind of built because the drummer at the time who put the group together, Christian, wanted a very specific thing. And so I was playing with him and Brian Sims in Junkyard Saints, which is Brian's original music, another longtime
I
Baltimore
know that
band.
name.
But wait,
yeah.
it's Speakers of the House. Are three of the members of that band, you included, in the Rachel Hall band?
Just two. So
You and Warren.
Me and Warren. So Warren Bowes, Brian Sims from Junkyard Saints, and now John Tamakis is our drummer. It had been Christian Stengel.
So the dude that played at the Woodshed with Rachel Hall.
That's Frank Young.
The drummer.
Frank Young is in Carl Filipiak's band.
Okay.
And so
what was that instrument that he played on?
Cajon. He played Cajon.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah, so you had a stand-up bass that night.
I played upright on that.
Right,
gig,
right,
yes.
right. Nice.
And I
That
played
makes
upright on one of the songs on Rachel's record too. But I don't do a ton of upright. When I play with Gina DeLuca and Tristan, actually, we have a trio called Naked Amongst Friends.
Yeah.
I love that band name.
He told it.
Yeah, he told me. I love that. Yeah,
but
great.
Tristan was the
upright.
one who was talking you up about because he said you use the bow.
I
and
do.
You call it your
It's my
your
distortion pedal.
Your
Yeah,
distortion
it's my
pedal
distortion
on the
pedal.
bass.
Right,
Yeah, it's
Because
fun.
you used it on that night at the Woodshed with Rachel Hall. It was awesome.
It's fun. Like that instrument for me, I came to it very begrudgingly.
Right.
So I was an electric bass player, right?
Sure.
Like, imagine asshole teenage anybody but me. And I'm like, this is what I do. And don't tell me I don't want to play upright or anything. I want to play electric bass.
Right,
And so I pushed back. I mean, I was learning it. I had to learn it, right? But I pushed back against it really hard for years and years. I played it in high school, junior and senior years, just so they could make me stop playing saxophone, which was a good thing for everybody.
Right.
And then kind of abandoned it, and then came back to it in the last couple years because I decided I wanted to be able to make music on that instrument. So playing it with Gina is really cool because she does a little bit of rockabilly stuff, but she's also doing like rock tunes and singer-songwriter tunes, and I'm getting to kind of play bass, but just on the upright, right?
Yeah,
like
that's fun. And
yeah.
it'll help your technique overall. Like, that's good.
So
and then I play
how-
it kind of punk rock.
Right. Yeah. So how, from explaining it to a non-musician lad, how different is it playing like the electric bass and a stand-up bass?
Okay, so the stand-up bass is very physical. It's just more muscle in both your right and left hand. Of course, the positioning is different, right? That doesn't mess me up that much. That's mostly the same. The positioning.
I guess you just rotate.
You're kind of rotating. Of course, unless you're playing fretless, electric bass has frets, and upright bass you have to find the pitches.
Yeah, listen to that. Think about that.
No, that's kind of why I was asking that.
I remember watching Mandy, Scotty's ex, had a cello a lot, and occasionally we'd come across upright basses, and she would start doing the formations of the notes or whatever, and there's no like fretboard. It's like if you're holding an electric bass, there are lines, there are dots. You at least have a little bit of a. This is like you have to know on the neck where that tone is and just get used to it.
And I played fretless. I really used to. I was such a fucking nerd.
Right.
Every gig I brought.
Alert.
I was a 6-string bass player. I feel like I'm like
nice.
It's like Confessions, right? So I was exclusively. God, I was obnoxious. I was exclusively a 6-string bass player. So every gig I brought a fretted and fretless 6-string bass.
That's so
every
funny.
gig for years, like freshman year of college through like I don't know the first time somebody yelled at me in Maryland to not play a 6-string bass. Somewhere in there, some amount of years. That's all I ever did. And so I played a ton of fretless, and so finding pitches on it wasn't like. It is still tough because the scale length is different.
Sure,
but that wasn't foreign. At least I got the concept of that.
But you did have a fretless for a minute to give yourself
for
that.
years. Yeah, so that makes a difference. But I still like like intonation is one of the great offensive things about trying to get better at upright. It's tough. Intonation's tough.
Right.
That and just powerhousing that instrument over top any kind of like pop setting, like real like loud backbeat drum set or loud guitar. It's hard to get an upright that loud because they'll feed back pretty easily. Right. And so you're really muscling.
Right.
The
I feel like you have
information
to
out
do
of
that to play it fast. Like
That
the strings are bigger, right?
Oh yeah.
The gauge isn't bigger.
No.
They're
not
not?
necessarily. They're longer. The scale length is much longer.
Yeah, but the strings aren't really bigger?
They're not really bigger. And they can be, the tension feels heavier.
Right.
Depending on the type of string you use.
Yeah.
But if you use like if you ever hear about like bluegrass players, they say like gut strings or whatever.
Yeah, right.
Those synthetic strings feel less tense.
Oh yeah, right.
You know,
I guess
so
that
there
makes
are
sense.
options. There are options to make it not feel that way. But traditionally, you know, a still wrapped upright bass string is stiff and it's work.
Yeah, I always feel like
Right.
it's like full hand.
It is,
like,
and it's hard to
you
have really
know.
low action on upright and get a lot of volume out of
Right.
it.
Well, I
Yeah,
guess they're
right.
spread out a little more too.
Yeah, the scale length is a little
Yeah,
longer.
yeah.
The
Or no,
width
the
between
width.
strings, yeah, a little bit. And there's a lot more radius to the fingerboard typically
Right.
Than electric bass.
Yeah, and like you're
That's why.
saying, that low end is very hard to get a pop. It's like
Yeah.
boom, 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 boom,
Right.
boom, boom. It's like even if it's ballsy in the room, it's hard to get it
Yeah.
picked up or something.
Yeah, it definitely, you have to muscle it, or at least I do.
Right.
Like, you know, if, you know, when you guys have like a real bass player on here, like Jeff Reed or whatever, he'll be like, no, upright's really easy and I'm really great at it because he is. And,
I would
but,
say you're a real
You're a
bass.
real bass player, babe. Yeah.
but as an electric bass player, faking it on
Right.
upright, those are my,
We're
those
gonna
are my
find it
impressions.
out
Do you ever
at some point.
Did you ever hear of Schleho? There's a band from Vermont called Schleho.
I don't know that band.
Actually, maybe Massachusetts. Clinton, my buddy Cleantone's he's yelling right now. But Schleho had an upright bass. They were a jam band.
Yeah.
I
might still be
think
around.
I've heard of them, but I don't
Well,
know if I've heard of
But
them.
they had an
Soul
upright
coughing,
bass.
soul coughing, that's almost all upright.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Is it really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, go back and check those records out. You'll hear it as soon as you're thinking about it. As soon as you're
Right
listening
now
for
that
it.
you know,
Right.
I guess the
you'll hear it.
I
It
don't
just
think I
has a
ever
little
realized it.
distinguishable
Yeah, well,
sound.
you know what is the da 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 ba da da boom 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 boom. That's the Super Bonbon, right?
Yeah,
like that's
yep.
one of their hits. But that
Oh,
the
no,
front opening
no,
lines.
just now that you're
it's
saying
upright
that,
bass.
that
Yeah.
100%
Right,
sounds
right,
like an
right.
upright bass in my head right now.
There you go.
Yeah.
I figured that'd get you there.
You're a Steely Dan guy.
I am.
All
I
right,
am.
good.
Yeah.
So Donald Fagen did a couple solo records.
Yep.
I don't know if you're familiar with them.
Not as much as I am. So
Steely.
Night Flyer and
The
right.
Nightfly,
Nightfly, yeah.
Kamakiriad, or no, yeah, it was called Kamakiriad was
Okay.
the second one, and I was going to ask you a question. The bass on that album is just incredibly I think it's a fretless bass. I don't know shit. I was just going to ask you what kind of bass is he using?
Well, you
on
can
that
you
album,
can
because-
pop quiz my ears if you want to play some of it. I don't know that record.
Yeah, well, that's all right.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
all right. That's all
So
right. But
I did not dig into his studio or solo stuff, and then when they released Two Against Nature, was that 2000 or
Yeah,
99?
uh,
I got back
99.
into Steely Dan.
Oh,
then,
my God, I love Two
And then
Against
of course everything from the 70s was huge.
well, know this: if you ever have the time, Fagen solo,
Second solo record.
both of them. I mean,
Okay.
Nightfly. if
Nightfly,
you go
I've
back-
heard tracks off
Here's
of.
the thing: Nightfly is kind of dated,
Yeah.
sounding, but musically, it'll get you there. There's a couple songs on there that are my shit. But Kamakiriad was a concept album about a future car, the future. Where he bought this car called the Kamakiriad, and women take over the earth, and it's a concept album.
Okay.
And it's a
Is
great
there
album.
video along with it? Or
No,
just
no,
music?
no. It's just music and liner
Vocals?
notes.
Well, this
and
would have
stuff.
been 93 or it's earlier than that?
Yeah,
80s, late
no.
80s?
This was 92 or 3.
92 or 3. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought
But
that was
it's a great album.
Okay.
And
I
it
feel like that
sounds
sounds
like
like something
classic Steely.
you either love it or you do not.
I think that if you like Steely, you'll love it.
Yeah.
Because Becker plays on it. And
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
It's Steely. It's
I mean,
plays.
I like concept records too, like
Yeah.
that Sturgill Simpson, the fire and
Yeah.
and-
Tommy Simbazo
yeah.
talked about
I was saying
that,
we
yeah.
just
That's a
were talking about
badass
it. Is that who
record.
brought
Yeah.
that up?
Yeah, Simbazo.
Right,
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
right.
Is it
Eats mushrooms and watches
Fire
it.
and Fury, is that what it's called? Fury and
Fury and Fire and
That's
Fury.
something like that.
I don't
I'm
remember what it's
terrible.
called.
at
Yeah,
fucking
talk
names.
amongst
look it up. I
yourselves.
need
It is
my brain is
Fire
bad
and
about
Fury shit.
yeah.
So, Whoa, Davis, do you
Go ahead.
so wait, all right, so let me think here. Musically, are we where we need to be? You talked about your bands and future projects galore. Now, one thing I usually do, which
Sound and Fury.
Sound and Fury.
Yep.
Thank you.
sound and
Oh,
Fury.
that was would have
Yeah,
driven
yeah.
me crazy.
Are you good?
Yeah,
can
well,
I?
I mean, I'll segue into this. So we've been talking. Something you were talking about just reminded me of this. So you know what I watched this weekend because people we've talked about it like 4 times on
Yes,
the show, and I haven't seen it in a long time. and I revisited it, and it did not let me down with Spinal Tap.
Oh my God, one of the greats, dude.
I don't know what was. Just talking about you were talking about two bases and Harry Shearer. What's his character's name? Is it Nigel?
Nigel.
When he has the double.
Nigel Farage.
Yeah. Is he Nigel or is Christopher Guest Nigel? But the booty song that they did,
Big Bottom. Yeah. It's unbelievable.
So that's one of those like ultimate music, like constant things.
Oh, it's been at least three people have mentioned that in their top movies, and I haven't seen it.
Nigel's Christopher Guest.
Yeah.
I knew
what
he
is
wasn't
Harry
Nigel.
Shearer's name?
Shearer is why isn't he on here? I got Michael McKean, Christopher Guest.
But that
was Harry?
I haven't seen
Derek
that
Smalls.
Derek
Derek
Smalls.
Smalls,
I
that's
haven't
right.
seen that movie since the 90s, at least.
And Reiner's
it's
deadpan documentarian
so great.
is
Really
phenomenal.
good.
It's so
Yeah.
great. It's so great. And Harry Shearer's not necessarily my favorite character, but his persona is my favorite. Like his outfits.
It's perfect.
The double neck, the giant double bass that he plays, and he's so little.
Yeah.
It's
perfect. Along with
oh my
Michael
God,
McKean's
it's amazing.
right height.
So with that being said,
Right. So we usually like to
I had to talk about it. I wrote
eventually-
it down today. I was
No,
like, I
it's
got to
perfect.
talk about Spinal Tap because I watched it over the weekend and I actually fell asleep during the end credits.
Oh wow.
And when I woke up, Train Spotting was on, so I watched that next.
Dude, Train Spotting.
Oh yeah, it's
One of
been
the
a while
greats.
since I've seen that too.
That feels like an evening, like sophomore year
I
of high
think I
school,
was
like
dreaming.
hanging out with friends.
Right.
Yeah.
right.
So my wife and Garrett and Amanda were at a soccer tournament, so it was just me and Lincoln home. Lincoln, I think, was probably. I mean, this was late, like probably 1 a.m, because we
Right.
watched John Wick also.
Nice.
John Wick 3. We were going through that series, but I think I was having weird dreams, and when I woke up, it was because Train Spotting was on.
yeah.
Dude, Train Spotting is
Yeah.
an incredible film.
All right, so
I mean,
go.
one
Keep
of the
going.
good- So we're movie people here, Matt.
Okay.
And I like to get, just a little bit of like, if you have a top 3 favorite movies, it doesn't have to be exact, but if you can narrow it down, what would your top 3 favorite movies be?
I'll make a disclaimer that I usually don't have favorites of anything.
I dig that.
Because that stuff.
That's fine.
It's so
That's why I
it's-
said, like,
changes.
don't
It's
get
constantly
too,
changing,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm
Like
the same way.
my favorite movie, I didn't even mention on the first episode.
Right. It's like, it's an unfair question. I get it.
There you go.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'll grab stuff that I watched too many times.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
No, that's
So-
good. It's like, like
It's a personality. We want to get to know you.
So one of the first ones for me was Dazed and Confused.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
We saw it we saw it opening day
93,
in the
yeah.
theater.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
we've saw it a lot.
I was just a little too young for that. So by 95-ish,
Yep.
it was like me and all my sophomore of high school friends. It was like we'd watch Dazed and Confused and listen to whatever record we'd listen to. They would all smoke pot. I was a square. I
Nice.
smoked pot.
Yep.
But I was a drunk.
Right. You said I didn't do drugs.
I was a
just
Southern
got
boy.
pissed drunk.
Yeah, I was a Southern boy.
Alcohol is more intense drug than
Alcohol is
Yeah,
way
that's a good
worse
way.
of a drug.
It's a way worse
But-
idea.
So you were a little harder.
Yeah. So Dazed and Confused would be on that list.
That's a good-
It
that's
deserves
a great-
a spot.
I love that.
Fuck, this is tough. Okay, I'm going to just say because it was so valuable during the time, the Lord of the Rings franchise. And not because the movies, I had already read the book, was already kind of a nerd.
Right.
Yeah.
And then they all came out in mid-December, and my birthday's the 19th. So
Right.
I went to see all those in the theater.
That's
It's like
fun.
a
It was an
birthday
event.
hang.
Yeah, it's an event.
It was, Jen and I were dating. It was like young, early 20s, just like
Yep.
a really awesome time.
And every movie's a
And they're
banger.
fucking crushing.
Right? You're
Yeah.
like, damn.
They're great
these are
movies.
great, right.
Yeah.
So that's got to hold a spot for me. for sure.
Absolutely.
Those movies and the Harry Potter movies are fucking me up time-wise, is how long ago they came out.
Yeah.
at this
Yeah,
point.
man.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like really like messing with my brain.
Dude,
Well, try having kids and they're like, is this from the 1900s?
Right,
And I'm
right.
like, fuck you.
You said
Fuck
that.
you.
I have been saying that lately.
Yeah, it's funny now.
Yeah.
I'm over the pain.
I was born in the 1900s.
yeah, it screws me up.
Lord of the Rings franchise. Those movies I could watch anytime.
Yeah, I think that holds a spot.
Yeah.
Dazed and the LOTR trilogy.
What's what's your favorite out of the 3 if you had to pick one?
I don't accept the question. Don't
Well,
answer
so
that. No,
okay,
no.
let me rephrase. I don't have a favorite movie out of the 3, but I do
Right.
have a favorite battle, and it's the Battle of Helm's Deep.
Yeah.
I swear to
by
God.
far.
Because
Yeah.
it's
It's
you're
such a
waiting
good-
for it.
Yeah.
from the entire first movie, especially if you know, if you've read the books, like, how are they going to do this? How badass this is going to be? I actually was surprised that all the visual stuff for the final battle in Mordor was as over the top as it was, because I don't remember, like, when you read it, it doesn't read that way. I mean, there are descriptions and stuff, but it's way more character driven.
You're talking about in Return? At the end of
Return of the King.
Right.
Yeah, that feels like they went hyper cinematic with it, right? Which I get. Cool. Right. Really psyched to see it in the theater. When I rewatched the movie, I'm like, okay, whatever. I don't give a shit. But Helm's Deep, absolutely. Like, such a great battle. And it's so the first real peak and trough of the series. I mean, yes, whenever they finally make it to Rivendell, that's got like a bump to it too. But Helm's
it's
Deep
a
is
bump compared to Helm's Deep.
Massive, massive. Yes, I agree.
Yeah, I love that battle. Helm's Deep.
So not a favorite movie, but that's definitely my favorite.
But the
I
Two
could just
Towers,
watch that.
Out of those three, when that was coming out, I was pissed drunk as a child, so I did not read The Lord of the Rings. My first experience, my wife read. She can speak Elvish, for fuck's sake. Like, she's read the Silmarillion and all of them.
I never read the Lord of the Rings books.
But when I went to see them, as the years went by, she was always like, now this one's good, this one's good. And I was always like, she was like, I loved the book Two Towers, but I don't think you'll like it. And I went to see it with that attitude, and I was like, holy shit, this is the best movie I've ever seen in my life.
I'd say the Two Towers is definitely like the Empire Strikes Back of the trilogy,
like, it really sold me, and then it made Fellowship better, and then, but I mean, this is 20 years ago. Since then,
I never even saw the old cartoons either, but I always one of my favorites was the Hobbit cartoon from like the early 80s or something.
It was like 70 minutes.
But they had a Lord of the Rings animation style like that too.
But they didn't finish it. It only makes it up to when Gandalf comes riding to Helm's Deep. Like, on Shadowfax, that whole. God, we're such fucking nerds.
I love it.
I'm sorry, this is great.
That's why we do it.
Awesome.
That's why we do it.
So God, I'm an idiot.
Shadowfax, I love it.
So that cartoon version ends in that at the top of that climax. Yeah. And they never finished it because it wasn't popular enough.
That's what Paige always said. Paige is always like, she loved the cartoon, but it's frustrating because
I can't remember the animator, but he's like famous. I mean, people know who the animator, but I always loved The Hobbit. Like, I used to watch that with my mother, and she used to scare the shit out of me, which I think I talked about on last. Because she used to pretend she was Gollum and be like, my precious. When I was a kid, because I was probably like 7, 8 years old when that came out. It might have been even like 1979.
It was, because The Hobbit I used to watch. But I used to love it. I could watch
the Hobbit cartoon, but I also like the Hobbit trilogy. I thought it was great. But like you said, they just added so much. to it.
From what I gathered,
from the film perspective.
The book is a third.
It's like 89 pages.
It's so short comparatively.
Right, and what it seems like they added a lot of stories from the Silmarillion and all other tales of Middle Earth.
Yeah, there's a bunch of character interaction that's not really in The Hobbit.
Right.
1977. That's when the Hobbit
What
came
about
out.
the Lord of the Rings thing? Was that 80 or before?
The Lord of the Rings cartoon?
I definitely didn't see it till high school.
So what was your third one? 95. You got a third one?
Oh, fuck. Let me think about that.
1978 was the Lord of the Rings.
Okay, so they did The Hobbit and then the Lord of the Rings and then stopped. Like, why the fuck?
Well, they didn't finish. They didn't finish Lord of the Rings. I was told it just wasn't popular.
Right.
They didn't get the funding for it or whatever. But I actually don't know. I'm sure Google will tell you.
Right.
You don't have to wonder about anything anymore. Just,
I know.
Just ask the internet.
Fuck that. I hate that. These motherfuckers. You got to experience something. You can't just read about it. You have to experience life.
I'm gonna have to read the Lord of the Rings books.
It's worth it.
Yeah.
So for me, I go in these weird cycles with reading. I won't read it all for like 3 or 4 years. I won't give a shit.
Yeah, me too.
And then I'll just get obsessed. Like right now, so that project I'm working on with Shelby, one of his inspirations for the thematic material for the record is the Dark Tower series, Stephen King, which I had never read. I'm a Stephen King fan.
Mm-hmm.
I read The Stand like in elementary school, which is probably part of what's wrong with me. And but I had never read anything from the Dark Tower. Mm-hmm. And so since I'm working on this project with him and doing like real collaboration, I was like, okay, well, this is important to the story. I'm going to dive into it. Mm-hmm. And I'm already halfway through the third book and I can't stop reading.
Is it the Drawing of Three?
Obsessed. Yeah. I'm on The Wasteland now. Drawing of Three is the second book.
Okay, so I read up to Drawing of Three in the 90s. Like, many years
I've only
ago.
read 3 Stephen King books. books. I've
Which
read
ones?
Pet Cemetery.
Okay.
I read
Oh,
that,
I
I
love
think, in
that one.
6th grade, which terrified me.
Yeah.
That
I've
I
read
love
Pet
that.
Cemetery. I read Christine, and I've read The Green Mile because The
Okay.
Green Mile
Green
was
Mile, yep.
released in the like miniseries.
Yeah.
Where you could just
That
read
was
the book.
awesome.
That was
Yeah,
great.
once a month they'd release one chapter, and it was a little 30. It's like a 40-page little book.
Yeah.
One a month.
Another
That's
book
pretty sweet.
series that I've
Sorry, I changed the subject.
No, this is what we
because
do,
it
baby.
goes
This
back
is
to kind
casual
of film-ish,
conversation.
Yeah.
but as The Wheel of Time.
Oh yeah.
I've read book 1 and book 2 at least 4 times each because I read it, then I get through it, and then I stop, and then I kind of forget about it, and then I go back to it, and I read it all over again. And now the series, I've only seen the first season so far, and it was fantastic.
So my wife's been telling me to dig into it, and I've never.
Season 1
I've
is...
heard Wheel of Time. Many people have,
But there's
told me
like
that that's
15 or 16 books. Like, I mean, I think Robert Jordan died at like book 11 maybe, but he had already been unhealthy, so he's got somebody finished the
posthumous
series.
work of some kind. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you this.
But the season, it's the first season is great.
Did it get renewed?
Yeah, I mean, their season 2's out now.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
nice.
Season 2 just came out in September, I think. Yeah, or
I will tell
August,
you this:
maybe.
if you go to read the Lord of the Rings, and maybe you can speak to this, but Paige always said that like it's very heady, like it's almost like it's like there's languages that aren't English, and there's glossaries for the language. So you're reading and you don't know what words mean.
They
You
don't
have to,
always.
like,
Yeah,
look
they
it
don't
up.
always translate the Elvish, but you don't.
Right.
I never looked up any of it. You can take.
Right.
You can
My
take
wife
it.
is a nerd,
context.
so she
Has
will,
she read Wheel of Time?
No,
Okay.
I'm talking about Lord of the Rings. You had said that you might try to read Lord of the Rings. I'm saying
I
just
don't know
be
if
patient with it
right.
because I
It's
know
it's really the first. Anytime they dip into history, because they'll go. It's actually like reading the fucking Old Testament.
Right.
that's what she said. The Bible. It's like
Because
reading the Bible.
they list this person's name and their lineage and how that worked and who they were related to and why this matters. And then you flip and there'll be like a map of Middle Earth and they just talked about all these places.
This is during the
and you're
reading.
like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
I see
Not
what's
like
going on.
at the back.
Yeah, no,
You
this
don't
is in the
reference it,
book.
like
Yeah, this is in the
you
book.
go
yeah.
through.
Yeah, there's a couple points where they're talking about Middle Earth geography, and I'll flip back to the map and be like, okay, is that north or south? Just to get my brain wrapped
Right.
around.
I mean, how long does it really probably take you to read the book?
You know what? There's another one I was obsessed with, but it's like 1,200, 1,300.
I'm telling you,
I mean,
it's
Christopher Lee said he read it every year.
it's a big book, and
Every
and
year
like
he
I
would
said,
read
now
read
Paige,
the Lord of the Rings.
Paige is a little like she reads all contract. Like she will read every single nook and cranny of everything.
Right.
But it's it's a read. It's a challenging read, but go for it.
I don't. Well,
because I think
maybe I'll do it on audiobook.
Well,
Actually,
kids
no,
do
no,
it
no,
all
no.
the time.
So
I mean,
what
it's
I
not like
no,
you
actually,
know.
I have thought about this. Andy Serkis reads the audio version of it, and he does all 128 characters.
Oh,
yeah.
shit!
Because I think it was on like Conan or Jimmy Fallon, somebody,
Wow.
and they were asking him, they're like, how do you keep the character straight? And he was talking about it because it's Andy Serkis. I mean, he's
Right.
like the GOAT, but he talks about like where he puts the mic when he's doing the character. That determines like how he does it. Like when he's Gimli, like he'll get under the mic.
Yeah, so
Oh,
he's
wow.
When he's Gandalf,
smaller,
like he
yeah.
puts the mic down, and he's like, I distinguish myself between all the characters based on where I move.
That's
the
an
mic.
interesting
Yeah.
technique.
But he reads the whole book and he does every fucking character, and I bet he does Gollum pretty good. That was stupid.
You said that. I love that.
Okay, now back to 3.
Oh god damn
Third
it! I thought I was
movie,
going to
right,
go.
You had
no.
all this.
All right,
you had
let
all
me
this-
think. I have to think of something that actually matters. Oh fuck, man.
Lord of the Rings matters.
Yeah,
Oh,
it
yeah.
did.
So does
Dazed
Dazed and
matters.
Confused.
Yeah, Days of Confused mattered to me.
We talk about important stuff here.
I'm trying to move forward. Let's
Right,
think about
right.
stuff that's happened. You know what I'm gonna say, and this is again a cop out, but it's for a reason. There's a handful of the Pixar / whatever movies that are incredibly valuable to me, and that is because of being a dad.
Yeah.
And so I'm gonna lump the first Cars movie.
Yeah.
Because that was like a on repeat with my boys when they were
Yes.
little, and it's a good movie,
Right.
but also incredibly emotionally valuable. I felt like Soul
Soul
being about a
was
musician
good. Yeah.
and about not reaching your goals and all that shit. That was pretty heavy. And the boys, they live with two parents that play music for a living. So that sparked interesting conversation.
Yeah. How old? So
with
you
us.
have two boys.
I do.
How old
I
are
do.
they?
So my oldest is 13 and my youngest turns 11 on the 16th of December.
Nice.
So I'm going through life at exactly the same pace as you are. My oldest is 13 and my youngest is 12.
Okay, you know what's up.
And they're cool. So I'm not I'm an artist. My oldest son is an artist. He's applying for Carver right now.
Right on.
But he's also
He's fucking incredible.
He's an incredible artist.
artist.
He's a flutist. Flautist.
Flautist.
He plays the flute, and my youngest is he's the snare drummer. But they're both in the school band, which is good. I mean, they go to St. Ursula over in Parkville. It's an award-winning band.
Yeah.
But Garrett really enjoys playing the flute and art. He's incredible. So he's a soccer player also. He broke his arm back in October in the midst of needed surgery, plates, right arm. He's right-handed. Panic sets in because he's literally working on his portfolio for Carver.
Right.
Just discovered he could draw just as good with his
The
left hand as his right
Left hand. He's showing on the text thread.
Yeah.
We're like, what the fuck is this?
So he's back. He's still got a splint on because he doesn't see the doctor till December. But he's doing the final piece of his portfolio is the self-portrait, and he's doing it left-handed anyway, wearing his sling. Look, and even though he doesn't have to, he's doing parts of the shading and stuff. He'll do right-handed, but he's
That's slick. That's fucking.
That's a good
he's
idea.
Just ultra talented kid, man. But
also, I love
it's awesome.
anytime the creation of art is part of the art. I really enjoy that.
Yeah.
That matters to me.
Yeah. But talking about
so
the
badass.
movies, watching them with your boys is me and my boy. It was a thing. We'd go see the Marvel movies. Anything that came out, we me and those two would go see it.
My sons are 24 and 18.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they're, my house was movie, movies are very serious in my house.
Yeah.
And so I took my boys to see all that stuff.
Yeah.
And
it's awesome.
It's good stuff.
That's those memories will always be with me for the rest of my life.
Hey, let me ask you this. It was kind of, it might have been Pixar or Disney, but it wasn't, I don't think it was soul, but it had to do with music. And I want to say it was Spanish.
Sing? Oh.
And the guy died, and they were, and it was fucking beautiful.
Coco,
thank you.
Coco.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Maybe was it that? Is it
Yes,
that?
it's Coco.
I mean, it was incredible.
Yeah, there's a ton. That is. So the main character in the underworld is a musician.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
And Soul, that's John Baptiste, right?
Yes.
Yes.
He is he the voice or just does all the music?
I think he's the voice of the main character.
I'm pretty sure you're right. And that's another reason why I love Despicable Me too, because of Pharrell's fucking soundtrack.
Right.
Is so good.
Also, those movies are brilliant.
They are. They really are. I like all of them.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of bummed out.
Carell.
Apparently, they're not bringing his brother back because they couldn't figure out how to incorporate him back into the story because it was kind of like a
Drew.
off the wall. Yeah.
What are they on? 5 or
4, I think. But
Is that right?
Drew, is it 4? Drew, I just know Drew is not going to be in the franchise anymore.
the last one?
The last one felt like it capped off the franchise because so they have that scene. Y'all saw it.
I don't know if I saw the very
Well,
last.
maybe that's why they're not bringing him
Yeah.
back.
There's
Because
a scene at the end in the Supermax or whatever, and all the previous villains are singing together. It's like
right.
It's like a cast recall.
I got you.
And I got this. It felt like a
Cathartic.
end of the
Right.
series, but
Yeah.
I mean, whatever. If they can
Maybe
make
they
money,
should
they'll
stop.
do it.
Right.
I saw with Quentin Tarantino, his favorite. You know what his favorite trilogy is?
Tarantino's favorite trilogy? No.
Toy Story. Even though there's 4 movies,
Yes,
he's
because
like
he said the third one is a perfect
third
movie.
one is the
I've seen
perfect
that
movie,
interview. Yeah.
perfect ending. He's like, why the fuck did they make a 4th one? He's like, I don't even care if it's good.
He refused
He's like,
to watch
I
it.
refuse to
He
watch the
refused to
4th
watch
one
it.
because
Yeah.
Toy Story 1, 2, and 3 are the perfect. It's the perfect trilogy,
That's funny. Well, that's Tarantino.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
and I believe him.
Yeah, me too. Well, so do you have anything you want to plug? I mean, what?
Yeah, sure. Man, I'll just talk about a little bit of the stuff that I have that's coming in this next year. And a little bit of things that just happened. So Rachel Hall released her first record earlier this year, which is For her, I'm not sure where that is in her discography, but for us as a band, it's our first, our debut record as a band. It came out great. Warren Bowes on guitar, Frank Young on drums. Really, really fun record. And I like the way that went. So check that out. And then in the new year, two projects that I'm really passionately involved in. One of them being Speakers of the House, and the other being this thing with my friend Shelby from the Dan McGuire Group. So Speakers of the House, we're actually going to go in December. Record a little bit of our original material, which not a lot of people know because the band works a lot, but not in that setting. And we're going to release either one or two tunes, depends on what we get done in the studio, just as a kind of a teaser to get people interested in that band as an original music band. Right. Then the plan to sort of flesh out material that we've already started working on for a record is our 2025 plan. Yep. So that band should have something along the lines of a full record sometime mid next year.
That's exciting.
Yeah, awesome. And I love that band. That band is that's Brian Sims on keys, Warren Bowes on guitar, and John Tamakis on drums.
Nice.
And then my friend Shelby. So the reason I keep saying his first name, his last name is Ab, but he is probably going to use his mother's maiden name for this project, so it'll be Shelby Waters. So that's the reason there's a thing there. He came to me, a brilliant musician, young guy, 28, fabulous guitar player, another great blue collar, regular working guy that if anybody calls me up and needs somebody, I would give him his name. I'd give them his name in a heartbeat. But he came to me. He's like, "Hey man, I wanted to work more on creative material. I've got this really ambitious project. I think I want a collaborator, somebody to help me, kind of guide me through the water." And what he came to me with was an entire album of material he already had written. And it's really good. It's concept related, but it's still just some great songs, really fantastic guitar playing. Right. And the personnel we're pulling in, I'm excited about. One of those people is Ricky Wise, both on drums, and we're going to use him on some vocal material as well.
Incredible. Vocals.
Yeah, it's incredible everything. Yeah. And then we're both pooling resources. The folks that we already have, like we said, there's just really high caliber musicianship in Baltimore. So that album is coming together. The demos, we've been just fleshing out arrangement stuff on the demos. That stuff's almost done. We will probably be finishing up the lyric portion and actually going in to record within the next few months. Nice. So that one's right at the front for me, at least as far as things.
And what would that be
about.
Called? You're saying it would be Shelby
it'd probably
Water?
be under his name. Gotcha. That'd be my guess. Yeah, it's in its fledgling as far as this is new material that nobody's heard. Right. So once we get done with the recording process, then we put together a band to perform it. Based on the people that end up playing it on the record, hopefully. And then once that has momentum, it'll, like all things do, you'll work it around in the various places that stuff belongs.
Right. That's awesome.
And try to see if anybody wants to hear it. Yeah.
Cool. So make sure you subscribe to the calendar. What's happening in Baltimore? You'll be able to find where Matt's going to be playing, any band, any of his projects will be on there.
That's the hardest thing about selling yourself.
I mean, I'm gonna have to rely on you to feed me that information, and I'll tell you how to do that.
Right, we'll put up all 70.
But most importantly, subscribe to the calendar. We also, if you go to sanitylounge.com, and at the top there's Your Baltimore, that's just a band, business, artist directory where you just put yourself up there. You can put a link to a website, phone number, any way anybody wants to get a description of yourself. It's almost like a bio, and that's just a free
we're trying
directory.
To build that
but
network.
then so we'll feature events. We send out weekly email blasts on Tuesdays of what's going on everywhere. So cool. I have like Ricky Wise trios on there for the Admirals Cup every time.
Yeah, we want to get it to if you come to the city, you can text or go
to
what's
Sanity
happening.
Lounge, and that's where you find out what to do. And we have two big sponsors, right? Or not sponsors, supporters, Guilford Hall Brewery and the Brass Tap in Baltimore. Yep. So they got a lot going on, and we're just trying to gain momentum in the city. So subscribe, share what we're doing, and that's it.
Yeah, man. Tell your friends that we're good people, and we just want good for the city.
Yeah, we'll have you back.
And cool. One of your 70 bands will be in here.
We'll bring some folks in for sure.
Good stuff.
I love that plan.
I appreciate you, man. Good
glad to be here. Glad you guys are doing this.
All right, stay sane, Baltimore.
Yep. Awesome.
That was fun.
Thanks for listening, Baltimore. You can find us at www.sanitylounge.com or on Instagram at sanity.lounge.
Keep listening and subscribe.
Stay sane, Baltimore.